Hey guys, so this is going to be the full tutorial for beginners and for anybody who already has a script for the all-in-one SMT indicator. So just for some background, this script is meant to be an all-inclusive script that has all the functions that you need in order to trade my system and to trade effectively. It also works on any security, so it works on stocks, futures, crypto, forex, whatever you trade. For this example, I'm going to be using NQ, which is the NASDAQ. So this is a futures instrument. This is typically what I trade day to day for my futures. If I'm trading options, I'll typically trade QQQ and then occasionally some individual tickers like Tesla, Nvidia, depending on what has momentum and has volume for the day. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is how to actually get the indicator on your chart. So once you go ahead and purchase it on WAP and you enter your TradingView username, it'll automatically add you to all 13 of my scripts. The two that I use out of all the 13 are the all-in-one SMT indicator, which I'm doing a full tutorial on, and then a simple add-on that just shows you PR signals from other tickers on the same chart, which is called the SMT reversal indicator. Everything else is just kind of supplementary to those. So the first thing we're going to do is click on indicators at the top ribbon here. We're going to click on that, go to invite only, and then go ahead and look for the all-in-one SMT indicator. So you're going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to take a few seconds, and then you're going to see that it's going to load it on your chart. So if you click on this drop-down arrow, it'll actually allow you to see your current indicators, and if you hover over the all-in-one SMT indicator, you'll see a few different icons that you can click. The first one is to hide the script. So if you just want to look at pure candles, you can hide and show the script with one click. Here is the settings bar, which we're going to dive into, which allows you to toggle the input settings as well as the style, and then also visibility, which I never touch, but inputs and style are what we're going to focus on. Then you also have the source code, which is protected. You have remove, which will get rid of the script from your chart, and then you have some additional settings where you can create an alert from here. You can, remove it. You can do a few other things, change the visual order, whatever. So first, let's go ahead and talk about what gets put on your screen. So right away, it might be a little bit to comprehend, right? It might be a little bit of overload. So I want to go ahead and explain first in depth what's going on here, and then I'm going to show you how to toggle each of these settings. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the EMA cloud. So this sticks out pretty obviously, right? So this EMA cloud is formed by the 9 and the 21 EMAs. Those are the most popular, in my opinion, for trading the short term and the medium term moving averages. So the 9 EMA is going to be your white line, and then the blue EMA is going to be your 21 EMA. So you can see actually on a trend day like today how we're kind of just riding the 9 EMA. We pull into the 21, that gives us some steam to keep going, pull back into 21 and then keep ripping. On a trend day, it's not unusual to see us actually ride the EMA cloud like this, right? So that is the 9 and the 21 EMA. What's nice is when the EMA cloud, when the white EMA, the short-term EMA is above the blue, the cloud will actually fill in to be green, so you know it's a bullish trend, and then vice versa, red when the EMAs flip bearish. So that's the EMA cloud, as well as the EMAs. The next thing I want to talk about is these red and green horizontal lines. So the red lines are automatically generated resistance, and the green lines are automatically generated support. So let's take a look at some examples, right? So here we can see that we had a sharp drop here on this this kind of formation of a bull flag. We dropped into this support level and then continued ripping higher, which then told the script, hey, this is a significant level of support. Let's mark it. And then also you get this little tag that gives you the exact value down to the hundredths place of the price where we actually have that support and resistance. Now, what's nice is you can change how many can actually appear on your screen. But what you'll also notice is we have some additional tags left over. For example, this 2184250 level, right? The line actually went away because we only have 4 at a time. But if I go ahead and hover over that level and draw an area of resistance that was formed here, you can see that it actually worked multiple times, and we finally broke out of that automatically generated resistance, and we continued ripping higher. So anyway, guys, that's the automatically generated support and resistance. We also have a few other things. We have key levels. So this will give you pre-market high, pre-market low, market open, yesterday high, yesterday low. Now, I typically turn these off when I'm trading futures because they're meant for stocks that actually have pre and post market as opposed to a 23/6 instrument like futures. But that you have a bunch of key levels there that automatically move as the time goes by. So those are dynamic real-time levels. We also have automatically generated supply and demand. So the supply and demand, I'm going to go ahead and hit the replay feature. Let's see if we can get some levels drawn for us here. Okay. So you'll see that we have this green demand zone here. So that green demand zone is an automatically generated supply and demand zone. The green ones will be ones that are generated from an upward pivot, and then we don't have a downward pivot here, so you're not going to see any red zones. But you'll see that this is a significant level of support or demand that's automatically generated. If we were to have a sharp drop later in the day back into this area, this would be an area I'd be looking at to have a significant bounce. but you have automatically generates a supply and demand. You also have intraday supply and demand here, which you can see 3-day prior, previous day supply, which is acting as demand in this case. Once we break out of it, look at this, we retest one of these demand zones here, this 2-day prior supply, which is acting as demand, and we continue ripping higher. So those are generated from multiple days. You can actually go back up to, I think, 8 days on this script, maybe even 10, but I typically only have the first 4 or 5 enabled. So that covers that. We also have our signals. So let me exit replay mode, and then we're going to go ahead and look at the signals that we get. So you have your long and short signals. The long signals down here is both of these signals. So the long signal needs 4 simultaneous criteria to occur, and the long and short signals and the PR signals need 5 simultaneous criteria to occur. So the PR signal is a downside potential reversal, which means we're looking for a reversal back into the EMA clouds, which you can see here. And we see right away our stop loss level is this red line. If we close above it, that's our stop. You see we never actually closed above it. We ended up pivoting and pulling back further than our target, right? We pulled back here, but our target is always the EMA cloud when we're above the cloud and doing a bearish reversal. Here you can see on the long signal, we just continued ripping higher. Now on this PR signal, it's a little different, right? Our target is not the EMA clouds because we close inside the EMA clouds. Our next target would be, I'll do the replay function to help us kind of visualize it a little bit better. Replay here. So here, when we get a PR into the clouds, our next target should be the next immediate level of resistance, which is this. And then if you want to be a little crazy, you can go to the actual high of day, looking for a pushback there. Again, you'll see that we tap the first level, pull back a little bit, hold the EMA clouds, and then rip past our second target as well. So that's the PR signal inside the cloud. So now that we've discussed all the signals, I'm going to go ahead and just tap on or touch on a couple other things that we missed, which is this purple line here, which is the 200 day exponential moving average, so the 200 EMA, and then this is VWAP or volume weighted average price, and those are all configurable in the settings. So that's everything that's there. Now, if you want to actually toggle things on and off, if you click this drop down arrow, we can go into our settings, and then I can show you how to actually configure everything. So trading hours. So this means these are the hours that you'll actually see these signals pop up, and these hours will also affect your alerts, your notifications. So if this is set to 9:30 to 9:30, this is essentially capturing 24 hours of time. This means continuous nonstop signals. If you make this any two of the same exact time, it's going to be 24 hours. If I only trade, for example, 9:30 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern, I would make this 9:30 to 16. So I'd drop down there and I would only see signals from that time frame. Now these are the moving averages I talked about, right? The 9 EMA, I can change the length of that if I wanted to. I can make it longer or shorter. The slow EMA, which is the blue one here, the 21, and then the slowest one, which is the 200. I can actually change the color of all 3 of my EMAs. The EMA cloud, let's say for example, I don't like green. I think for whatever reason, pink is a bullish color. You're going to see this little icon here, the eye spin, which means it's loading, and then you'll see my EMA cloud has turned pink. So I can actually dictate the colors of the EMA cloud, and if I don't like it, I can turn it off. I just uncheck that, and my EMA cloud fill goes away, and I only have my EMAs. EMA crossover signals, so if you want an arrow for long and short every time we have a 921 EMA cross, you can enable that. I don't do that. I only keep the long and short signals because these are only one criteria. The long and short consider EMA crossovers as well as other criteria such as volume, candle structure, and other trend-related indications. So unusual volume. This actually shows us, I can actually probably do an example here. So anytime a candle has a certain multiple higher, like a multiplier of the previous candle's volume, for example, let's make this 1.5. What I can do is I can actually make it so that anytime I have a candle that has more volume by a certain amount, that it triggers an alert. So let's set this as the hours. I'll hit OK. All right, so now I'm going to enable the unusual volume setting, and then anytime we have a candle, so here you're getting these little triggers, right? So green means it's a green candle, red means it's a red candle. So anytime a candle has more than 1.5x the volume of its preceding candle, you're going to get a trigger. I usually keep this at 2 because 1.5 is not really significant. You'll see we didn't have any candle like that, but on days where we have a huge move where a candle spikes in volume 2x the previous candle, then we get a notification there. Again, you can change the settings for the time for that as well. ORB, a lot of people know about this. This is the opening range break. So for example, if we want to enable our ORB levels and we hit OK, now you can see here the issue is that we're on futures. But you can see here we get it's considering 10:30 a.m. As opposed to 9:30 a.m. as the opening range. So what we can actually do is we can set an offset of, let's say, let's do -60, and I believe this should go ahead and push the opening range to the actual time, which is 9:30, right? So you can always do this offset. So what I do here now is I take this opening range candle and it automatically draws the opening range top and bottom. A lot of people use this opening range so when they see a break, so for example, we kind of stuck in this range and then we had this breakout candle at 9:40 where we broke out of that opening range and we continued to rip. Some people like to use that opening range break as a trigger to go long or short. So I have built that into the indicator. So let's go ahead and uncheck that. Another example is the chop filter. So I don't really use this. I kind of just use my own intuition and general knowledge to identify chop. So some just little tricks and tips and tricks I use. So for chop, if our EMAs are super compressed and VWAP is more horizontal than a linear, or I guess like a y equals x kind of slope like this, then we're kind of experiencing some chop. So think about it from the perspective of volume weighted average price. So if our volume weighted average, if our average price is rising, that means we're like this, it has a significant slope, right? Almost like a y equals x, a one slope here. Then actually our price is rising over time. And now if we have a horizontal VWAP, that means we're kind of staying around the same average price, which means we're not having any significant fluctuation or trend in either way. So if we have a kind of a horizontal VWAP and tight compressed EMAs, I avoid trading. But you can also use some other criteria such as this is kind of using Bollinger Bands, and then the Keltner multiplier kind of allows you to modify these criteria where it's taking Bollinger Bands and it's taking if we go in and out of those bands, then it considers if you go out of the bands, then we're exiting chop, and if you stay in the bands, we're constricting our price movement to those Bollinger Bands, which means that we're in that chop area. So you can use that if you want. Just check that, and you can multiply or change the multiplier as much as you want. So arrow size. So let's take a look at this long signal. So here you can see the arrow is a good size, right? But maybe I'm on mobile and I think that arrow is actually way too small for my screen. I can change the arrow size to normal and watch how this gets significantly bigger. Now it's a little bit of an eyesore on a screen like this, but sometimes, well, I guess it would probably be the opposite, right? On mobile, you want a smaller arrow, but on a big screen, like if you have a 22-inch monitor or whatever, maybe you want this to be a little bigger, so you have the option to make that larger. Now talking about our PR signals. So if you don't like the PR signals, those potential reversal signals, you can enable and disable them. So if I uncheck bullish PR, you'll see, give it a couple seconds and that goes away. If you don't care about these red stop loss lines, for example, I can uncheck this and our PR stop loss lines will go away. And then you can also change the length of that red stop loss line, right? So here it's a good length, right? It actually is perfect because it covers all these candles before a breakout. I can make that longer or shorter, and I can also make the line thicker or thinner. Now let's talk about the automatic support and resistance. So these red and green lines are automatically generated support and resistance. Now what's interesting here is the look back period allows me to change the frequency of these support and resistance lines. So if I want more lines, I change the look back period to a shorter number and watch how I get much more frequent lines. So now we're getting more lines and in a tighter range. So we're getting more support and resistance in a shorter range. So we're getting a lot more of these levels. So if we're more of a hyper scalper, we care about these levels. We want more of them. We can do that. If we're not a fan, if we want to, like for example, we only want a couple levels, we change it to a higher number and watch how we're only getting super significant levels, right? We're only getting these huge pivots and this huge resistance here that we broke out of there. So my sweet spot is 15. I like to have about 4 levels in a pretty spread out range. So this kind of covers a good amount here, and it gives me the most significant levels that I consider relevant when I scalp. What you can do is you can actually change these. So I like to just make everything white because I know if it's above price, it's resistance. If it's below price, it's support. I don't need the red and green and additional colors. So I like to do that. You can change the anchor period and the offset and the VWAP color, and that's pretty self-explanatory. These key level labels. So if I don't want this label, for example, I just remove that pre-market high. I don't care about the text. Watch how the label just disappears. Sorry, that was pre-market low. Let's do pre-market high. There you go. Now pre-market high is gone. So I can actually remove all these labels if I don't like them. You see all these will disappear. And if I go into the style tab, this is where you can actually remove lines and things like that. I can just remove all these levels if I don't want them. So watch how they go away. Boom, all my lines are gone. So pretty cool, you can enable and disable everything. So let's see what else we haven't talked about. Yeah, automatic stop loss and take profit. If I enable this, anytime we have one of these long or short triggers, you'll see that we have target prices and stop losses. So you can see it designated this was the stop loss and then this was the target price. And you can see that we hit the signal, pulled back a little bit, and then ripped into the target price. Now the thing is, these are just set by default as a multiplier or a percentage of the underlying security. You can't, change that. So if you want to make your stop loss tighter, you want to make like 0.05, just enable that and you'll see the stop loss line will get shot up a little bit, and then it will be moved to a 0.05% move of the underlying security. So I'm going to go ahead and took care of that. So I'm going to turn these off, and then we'll talk about the supply and demand zones. So these are the automatically generated supply and demand zones. So this green one right here, if I want to change that demand zone color, I usually make all my zones gray. Then I can go ahead and change that, and you'll see that the zones become gray. So actually I made a mistake. This is for the intraday, right? So these are for these zones right here. So these zones take supply and demand from individual days in the past, up to 10 days in the past, and it generates zones from that. So here this is just kind of the way I do it. If you enable all 10 of these zones, you're probably gonna have a cluttered chart unless we have a huge range. So I like to just use the 5 here. And the way that I look at it is the more recent the zone is, the more significant it is, right? So if we take a look here, 2 days prior and yesterday's zones, those are going to be very significant in terms of how the market's going to react to them, right? They have much more, the history of the price action is much more recent. So you see that we dipped into this zone. Buyers immediately stepped in. We tried 3 times here. You see these bottom wicks. Buyer stepped in, pushed it up, and then we continued ripping higher. So you can enable and disable those as well as change the color. And then what I tried to alter here was something a little bit further down is you have your intraday zones. So these are the ones that are generated by intraday pivots. So you have this big green zone here. I can also change the color of this, right? I'm going to keep it green and red because I like to keep the intraday zones as green and red and the intraday zones as gray. So, and you can also alter the trading hours and the zone length of that. So that's pretty much it. You can see every single feature is toggleable on and off and adaptable to your style. And if we go into the actual style tab, you can see I can literally disable anything I want. Every single thing can be enabled and disabled. You can see here, let's say I just uncheck everything because I don't care. Turn everything off, right? See how everything's just slowly going away, right? And eventually I have nothing, right? You could literally disable every single thing on the indicator, boom, everything's turned off, but the indicator's still there, and you just undo everything, Control Z, and you get everything right back. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is a tutorial for the all-in-one SMT indicator. You can do everything with this script. If you want to add additional reversal confluence, if you want to take a look at the reversal indicator, which is right here, I can add that on and I can get some additional PR signals. It's very easy to use. You can see here, when I add that, I get an additional downside QQQ PR, which actually was a very successful PR. You can see we immediately pulled back into the clouds. So what this allows you to do is if you want to basically plot PRs for other analogous tickers. For example, if I'm trading NQ, maybe I want to look at QQQ and MNQ PRs to make sure those are also plotted so I don't miss any tech-related pullbacks. You can do that here. You can change whatever cross references you're using in the custom ticker 1 and 2. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and yeah, thanks.